My name is Michael Zank. I'm the director of the Elie Wiesel Center for Jewish Studies here at Boston University, and I welcome all of you tonight to this very special occasion. And I want to start by recognizing our co-sponsors. Starting with the Consulate General of Israel to New England, the Jewish Community Relations Council, the Jewish National Fund USA, the Israeli American Council, Boston Partners for Peace, and last but not least, the Friends of the Arava Institute. So welcome to all of you. It is a real pleasure for me to introduce this panel tonight. It represents a new initiative of the Elie Wiesel Center for Jewish Studies to foster and create opportunity for the teaching of Israel and the environment here at Boston University. We've been teaching Israel courses and offering Israel courses for a long time. We have a very, very popular course that runs every semester now on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But both my wife and I met in Israel. So for us, this is a matter of love. We both felt that the environment is our issue number one for all of us, anywhere on this globe. And we believe that Israel is a leader in environmental issues and has a lot to teach us. And when we found David Lehrer to spearhead this initiative for us, we were extremely, extremely fortunate that he came to BU. He's now at BU as the Israel Institute Teaching Fellow. He's the long-term executive director of the Arava Institute, and he has a lot to teach us and our students. And I couldn't have imagined a better individual, better educated, more engaged, more knowledgeable, and also more kind and pleasant to work with than David Lehrer. And tonight he will be joined by Dr. Tareq Abu Hamid, who is the current executive director of the Arava Institute. And to my students, if you don't know what the Arava Institute is, you will learn a lot about it tonight. And the good news is that we are working on creating opportunity for students to go to the Arava Institute maybe as soon as next March as a kind of alternative spring break and spend time in an arid region and learn about the kinds of things they do. And we will hear a lot about that tonight. And I think you will all leave very excited about the fact that we are doing this. I also want to thank my colleagues here at BU in Earth and Environment who welcomed this initiative and who are helping us to schedule courses so that students in Earth and Environment can take courses on Israel and post-conflict cross-border cooperation in environmental initiatives. And so I'm super excited. I'm really, really super excited to welcome everybody. And I'm asking now Miriam May, who is the CEO of the Friends of the Arava Institute, to come and join us and lead us through the program. So thank you, everybody. Welcome to BU.
Thank you. Can we start the video? We're going to give you a little introduction to the Arava Institute by computer magic, I hope. Somebody, not me. Ah, here we go. A little distraction. We'll be with you in a second. It's all good.
Because the environment can't wait for peace between Israelis and Palestinians, and the Arava Institute was founded in order to advance cross-border environmental cooperation in the face of political conflicts.
The Institute combines environmental, social, political, and community-based experiences.
The Arava Institute is unique because it's decided to deal with transboundary environmental issues in our region.
The goal is to take the theory from the classroom about water, about partnerships, about the shared environment, and to apply these theories on the ground to improve people's lives and to build a different narrative.
Here, the role of the Arava Institute is actually to build a consortium of researchers, of regional leaders, to bring them together and to plan the future action that will help us adapt and mitigate climate change in our region.
When we look at the big picture, it's very hard to find a starting point. The Arava Institute provides a starting point where we can actually work together on tangible projects that change the situation of the communities and the environment on the ground, and doing that through fostering trust.
The work that the Arava Institute does in climate change adaptation and mitigation actually touches upon the food security, the energy security, the water security issues that are important for our region, and that they are important for the environmental justice of the region that we live in.
We bring Jews and Arabs together, Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, and international students in order to teach that nature knows no borders.
We work also with communities in Palestine, in Jordan, in Gaza, in the Negev.
I think the Arava Institute demonstrates a way where true collaboration can happen.
Before I came here, I had this idea of what the people on the other side may think, what they may speak about, how they interact, and now I know that what I thought was completely different than what I realized today.
I come here, I see something different. I see like the people who is like take caring for us. It's like we're sharing everything together, and now we are living together.
The scarcest resource in the Middle East is actually trust. And part of what we're doing here at the Arava Institute is providing ongoing long-term experiences to restore and build trust between Palestinians, Israelis, Jordanians, and internationals.
It just widens your heart, you know? It's like you just filled with love for the environment and for people and for culture and for language.
The Institute's vision is to take all of this and turn it into a global center for applied environmental diplomacy that uses the environment to build peace in the region so that we can pass off to our children a world which is more sustainable and more peaceful.
We live together in this region, and we have to work together to solve our region's environmental problems. We don't have the luxury to give up. One country alone cannot succeed.
Welcome to all of you, and we're so delighted to have you with us today. We see some old and new friends, and we're happy to be on this campus. We're happy to be with the Wiesel Center for Jewish Studies, and we thank all our other co-sponsors. The Consul General, Ambassador Miron, was going to be with us tonight. He got held up and sends his apologies. I am delighted to introduce my friends and colleagues who you just saw, stars of stage and screen, Dr. David Lehrer and Dr. Tareq Abu Hamid. David Lehrer, as you heard, was the director of the Arava Institute for 20 years. He recently, I don't want to say retired, changed roles. First, he's coming here to do teach and study with here at BU, and to be our friend here at the Friends of the Arava Institute. And then he will return to the Arava Institute and stay the Director of International Development. And he is, as they said, an Israel Institute Teaching Fellow here at BU. And he was the Executive Director from 2001 to 21. So he holds a lot of the history, and he has a PhD in Geography and Environmental Development from Ben-Gurion University. Dr. Tareq Abu Hamid is the Executive Director of the Arava Institute as of August 1st. He served as its Academic Director and Director of Center for Renewable Energy previous to that, until his appointment earlier this year. Before that, he took a little break from us and served as the deputy chief scientist of the state of Israel. Before that, he had founded our Center for Renewable Energy. He has a postdoc from the Weizmann Institute and the University of Minnesota, and a PhD in chemical engineering from Ankara University in Turkey. He's a resident of East Jerusalem, though he commutes a lot to Kibbutz Keturah. How many hours? Don't ask, because it's a little faster than it should be. And is the first Palestinian to head an Israeli academic institute. So I'm gonna ask the questions. I feel power. No, just kidding. So David, you, as we say, you're the holder of a lot of the history. You took the Arava Institute from pretty small and pretty new to where it has gotten to. Going to give a little bit of a kind of thoughtful how that journey felt.
Sure. So first of all, even before I say that, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. I'd like to thank our partners from Jewish National Fund who've joined us. I want to thank Michael for those beautiful words that you spoke in the beginning. I appreciate the warm welcome I've gotten from the Elie Wiesel Center for Jewish Studies. It's been amazing with Boston University in general. I am, as you can tell by the heavy Israeli accent, not born in Israel. I grew up in North Carolina. Can you believe that? I moved to Israel when I was 17. I'm sorry, I made my first trip to Israel when I was 17. I moved when I was 22 to Kibbutz Keturah, where I made my home with my wife Barbara and raised my kids there. The kibbutz, I know that many of you in this room, some of you through a bike ride and some of you through other means have visited Kibbutz Keturah. It's a kibbutz that was founded by a group of Americans and then Israelis and people from all over the world joined. It's perhaps a bit of a different kibbutz. It's a kibbutz that prides itself on its tolerance for difference, and in 1996, when Professor Alon Tal, who's now member of Knesset, Alon Tal, came to the head of the business committee and said, "It's not on." Sorry. When he came to the head of the business committee and said, "Okay, I'm on the kibbutz now. I've been working off the kibbutz. I'm now back on the kibbutz. What do you want me to do? Wash dishes? You want me to fold laundry? You want me to work in the fields? What do you need from me?" And the business head said, "Look, Alon, you're a smart guy. I want you to go away for 3 days. Come back and bring me two or three great ideas to help the kibbutz develop." And he came back 3 days later and said, "Well, I've got two ideas. And the first one is, let's start a dude ranch. We'll get some horses, we'll put tourists on them, we'll ride them around the desert, it'll be great." So the business head looked at him, he said, "All right, what else you got?" And then he said, "Okay, how about if we establish a institute that brings Jews and Arabs together, Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, in order to teach that nature knows no borders." And that, fortunately for him and for us, for the kibbutz and for me, and for Tareq and everybody, that's what we went with, not the dude ranch. The institute was founded in 1996 and was basically an overseas study program. It was the model was bring people from abroad together with Israelis and Palestinians and Jordanians who will learn together about the environment, because maybe that's something that everybody can all agree on. The early days, we had our classroom, which till today is still in the kibbutz library. We had something called a computer room. Remember that, guys? Remember when students needed to have a computer room because they didn't have iPads and laptops? So we had our computer room was in a bomb shelter. The offices were in caravans that were taken out of Sinai in the 80s, were pretty much falling apart. And our meeting room was actually under a big acacia tree. That's where we met, under this tree, under a picnic table. There were 5 members of the staff when in 2001, when I came to the Institute and was hired as the executive director. The program was really just about the academic program, but when I came on board, this allowed Alon and some of the other professors to start doing research as well. And so that's when we began to develop other parts of the program. We established a research center into sustainable agriculture, research center into conservation. A number of years later, Tareq came along and we established the Center for Renewable Energy, Transboundary Water Management. At one point, we said to ourselves, okay, what we do is important, but really what's important is not what we do. It's what our students do when they graduate from the Arava Institute and go back to their home communities. So how do we make sure, how do we empower them to be the environmental leaders that we've given them the tools to do? And that's when we established our alumni program and began to help them to look for job opportunities, to build relationships that go way beyond the period of time that they are at the Institute. And even today, many of our alumni have become our colleagues and have gone on to get their doctorates and are working with us as researchers, or they're working in non-governmental organizations, or they're working in municipalities or in government. We began to develop the physical structure of the Institute. We went from caravans that were taken out of Sinai in the 80s to a turkey coop, which we refurbished, a turkey coop that I once worked in when raising turkeys as well. And so today, the Institute has dormitories, has offices, but we have bigger visions. We don't stop, right, Miriam?
We should not stop.
We should not stop. And so our big vision, of course, is to see the Institute continue to grow, to build a new campus for 150 students at Kibbutz Keturah. I'm very, very proud of the fact that I've was served as the executive director for 20 years, but I'm really most proud that I was able to step down and able to hand it off to my colleague, my friend, Tareq, who really now has the opportunity to take us to the next level.
Thank you, David. Tareq, let's get to the fun stuff. You're just back from Glasgow, where Tareq was a member of the Israeli delegation to the UN Glasgow conference. You want to tell us a little bit about that fun experience? Especially the Scottish with the masks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming, and thanks for the Center for Jewish Studies for arranging this. It's really a great honor to be here at Boston University. This is my 3rd time on campus. I had also joint projects with the electrical engineering department here. It was a great experience really to be in COP26. I was also in Paris. It's a huge event with the whole environmental world is coming into one place. The most important thing that was mentioned in the first 4 days that we need to work together. Everyone recognizes the importance of cooperation to cope with the climate change, to adapt and mitigate climate change. There were very ambitious goals by many countries to reach net zero emissions by 2050. I know most of the countries will not reach that, but the ambition was very nice. To build awareness and to set goals, it's very important. Net zero emissions means that by 2050 means that we have to change the way we live. We have to change the whole aspect of power production, transportation, residential sector, industrial sector, that we have to give up on oil, fossil fuel, and natural gas and find clean, renewable energy resources. Developed countries can do that. Developing countries cannot do that. And they ask also for assistance and help from the developed world. Net zero emissions means also to change the way we produce our food, do our agriculture. We managed to do very nice connections with important countries in our region that we've never been in contact with. And I think we learned a lot of lessons, and I hope that in the next COP in Sharm el-Sheikh next year, we will have an active role in the next COP.
So the Middle East is literally a hotspot for climate change in every way. And it's also a hotspot politically. So maybe you could each talk a little bit. David, maybe you want to start on the subject of cross-border cooperation, how we have working on cross-border cooperation to help mitigate these factors, and then some of your vision around that, Tareq.
Right. So, first of all, I think that one thing has become clear in the past 2 years, and that is that we all live on the same planet, and we're all part of the same human ecosystem, and that anytime there's a threat to that planet, it's not something that one country or one part of the world can resolve. It's something that desperately requires cooperation, trust, cross-border engagement. And this all became absolutely clear in the pandemic, and is so clear when you look at climate change. Climate change is not something that one country, certainly not a country the size of Israel, can attempt to mitigate. It's something that really only can be resolved and dealt with and met in any kind of way if we were working together. So that, of course, has been what the Arava Institute has been championing since its inception, because we believe that the environment can't wait for peace between Palestinians and Israelis, and because we believe that by working together on mutual environmental concerns, we build the foundation for peace. The Arava Institute was founded on those concepts, and today I think what we're seeing is more and more people are becoming aware and understand how critical that cross-border cooperation is. So the Arava Institute in 2016 launched a new initiative that really tried, I think I said it in the video as well, tried to take the lessons we've learned from our cross-border academic field, working together on research, working together on issues like energy, water, agriculture, conservation, and taking them out of the classroom, taking them out of the academic field and out of the research lab, and bringing them to people who really need it. So we focus at the Institute on vulnerable communities, both within Israel, like the Bedouin community, as well as Gaza and the West Bank, trying to bring solutions for water, energy, agriculture, sustainability, and more. And many people are really surprised to hear that the Arava Institute is working in Gaza, but we are working in Gaza. Because Gaza is a humanitarian crisis. I mean, it's just a disaster. There's 3 to 4 hours of electricity every day for most residents. There is the groundwater is completely polluted. 95% of it is undrinkable. Wastewater, it flows into the streets, flows into the Mediterranean Sea, and then washes up on their shores, washes up on our shores. In the past, the Israeli desalination plant, where Israel gets a big chunk of its drinking water, had to shut down because of pollution that stopped up the membrane. So it's clearly issues like that that need to be resolved that are in everybody's interests. And we have partnered in the past 4 years with a group of Palestinians who are former ministers in the Palestinian Authority to try and propose solutions that can actually be implemented, not just agreements on paper, but actually to bring wastewater treatment systems into Gaza. We've managed to do that. We've managed to bring in water machines that take humidity out of the atmosphere and turn it into high quality drinking water, an Israeli technology that we managed to get into Gaza. We also work in the West Bank on wastewater treatment, on renewable energy. We work in the Bedouin communities, really reaching out to the most vulnerable. And I think that, this is our bottom-up approach. We don't believe, we're not going to bring peace to the Middle East. But what we do believe that we do at the Arava Institute is really from the bottom up, create the kind of atmosphere where people can understand that there are partners for peace. And we will continue to work for that partnership and work for that peaceful resolution of the conflict from the bottom up, hoping that someday there will be some wise leaders who will join us and work on peace from the top down.
Okay, so the Middle East is considered a hotspot when we talk about climate change because our region is in between the hyper-arid climate in Africa and also the cold and rainy climate in Europe. So in any change in Europe or in Africa impacts us very, very hard and very strong. The temperatures in our region are expected to increase much more than the global average. 75% of the GDP of most of the countries in the MENA region rely on agriculture. So when droughts, when floods hit us, that will impact most of the population in the region, like Egypt, where 40% of the Egyptians live in the delta of the Nile, and it's the food basket of Egypt. So when that delta gets underwater, the same thing also in Iraq, Shatt al-Arab, also the food basket of Iraq. Droughts in Jordan, droughts in Lebanon. That will not create only an environmental or humanitarian crisis. It's a first-degree security, national security issue for most of the countries in our region. As David said, we share the same water resources. We live in a very tiny region. I live in East Jerusalem and I see downtown Amman from my home. That's how small the region that we live in. Air pollution can pass in half an hour from one country to another. The coastal aquifer, we share it. We share the whole Eastern Mediterranean. And as I said also in the video, one country alone cannot solve the climate change issue. We have to work together. We know our capacity, and we know that the Israelis have the capacity to actually help the world in spreading the technologies that they have on water desalination, wastewater treatment, adapting plantations to droughts, to high temperatures. So climate change is not only a threat, it's also a great opportunity for science and for high-tech technologies. I don't know of any other organization that work on the ground and brings people together in the Middle East, expect the Arava Institute and the Malta Conferences Foundation that bring also people from the whole Middle East, from Iran, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Israel, from Jordan, the whole MENA region, to come together and to find solutions to climate change. We use the environment, we use the science as a diplomacy tool, as a bridge to connect between people. And that's the only way we can deal with a global crisis like climate change and COVID.
So Tareq, you mentioned the whole region and the many partners that come together with the Malta Conference, et cetera, and so forth. The Abrahamic Accords have clearly opened that universe of partners. How do you see that kind of as a go forward opportunity for the Institute?
Okay, I think everyone here agrees that this is a great opportunity for scientific cooperation. The United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Bahrain, they have similar climate to the climate that we live in. They have also the same challenges. And we have 25 years of transboundary work in the region. And we are the address for transboundary projects in the region that we live in. We started cooperation with several organizations in the United Arab Emirates and also in Morocco in projects related to renewable energy, environmental policy, mini grids, sustainable agriculture. There's a great opportunity, and people, as I said, know that the Arava Institute is the address for transboundary research, and that's why they approach us.
So, your personal journey from your youth in East Jerusalem to the Arava Institute to now the executive director is sort of everything we wish shared society in Israel would be. But the recent violence during the Gaza war sort of rocked everybody's assumptions about that things were peaceable and sustainable. I presume you have a point of view about that.
Yes, I do.
Just a guess.
I grew up in East Jerusalem in a village called Surbahir. It's in the border between East and West Jerusalem, very close to Ramat Rahel, for those who know Jerusalem. And I used to volunteer and work in the kibbutz, pick apples, cherries, and work in the kitchen. And actually, that changed my view to the other part. I used to see my neighbors from my window, or the bus that took me to the school, and my experience in the kibbutz changed my way of thinking, changed my life. That's why I decided, actually, one of the reasons to leave Minnesota and go to the Arava Institute. It's not the cold. Nothing. It's like
doing solar in Minnesota makes so much sense anyway.
I say I left like -40 to +40, and
centigrade.
Yeah, that's why I actually took my family and we went down to live in Kibbutz Keturah, because I wanted to have my daughters have a similar experience like mine. And then they decide, and this actually taught myself, my family, the importance of experiencing firsthand living with the other. The importance of shared society never been that high, especially in the last period since April and May. Every one of us in Israel took that for granted, and I say we were the silent, the majority in Israel. We never spoke loud enough about the importance of shared society. And that the lesson that we learned is that we have to talk, even if it's looks like that's functioning and going well. No, we have to speak about that. We have to talk about the importance of living with the other.
we said that we've been working in this field for 25 years with Palestinians, with Jordanians, but I think we kind of ignored working within Israel itself, doing more projects between the Israeli Arabs, the Palestinians in Israel, and the Jewish communities. And this is one of the things that we want to work more on, to develop and to do joint research between the Arava Institute and Arab research institutions within the Arab communities in Israel.
I want to add to that. First of all, I want to say that I think we can't take lightly what Tareq does. It's really quite brave and unusual that he has, been so willing to put himself out there, and it's not always been easy, I know. I also want to say that that life in the Arava is in some ways can be very disconnected to the rest of the world and the rest of Israel, but it doesn't mean that we're not a part of everything that's going on. And even in May, when on the one hand, bombs were dropping in Tel Aviv and bombs were dropping in Gaza, we were all very connected to our families, to our friends on both sides of the borders. My daughter was, in Tel Aviv, 9 months pregnant, crouching in a hallway with her 2-year-old. Our colleagues, our Palestinian colleagues, were sending us pictures of their families' farms in Gaza on fire. It's all very human. And that's part of what I think we're trying to do at the Arava Institute, but we are human. And during the war, we had an incident on the kibbutz at the Institute. Somebody wrote some graffiti on the wall of the Arava Institute's dorms, death to Arabs or something really horrible like that. And our students were there at the time, and it was really quite frightening and quite shocking because we are kind of used to living in a bubble. But I think a couple of things stick out in my mind. First of all, our staff reacted very quickly, and we all went down there before the students. Fortunately, they were students, so they didn't wake up very early, and we were able to get there before they woke up. But I have this memory of Tareq and I were there, and we started painting. We wanted to paint over the sign before it, and the students saw it, and Tareq turns to me and says, "Yeah, this reminds me of when during the first Intifada, when the Israeli army would take us kids, us teenagers, and force us to paint over the graffiti."
What a warm memory.
It's like a warm memory, but that was. But that's real. That's human. That's where we live. That's the world we live in. But I do want to say that what was really heartwarming about that horrible event was that the reaction of my community, Kibbutz Keturah, which was so horrified by what happened, that same evening, the entire kibbutz came to the campus to be in solidarity with our students and to have an event to sort of show that the students are loved and wanted, and Palestinians and Israelis, and I think that's the power of love that Rena, I think, talked about. You bring people together. If you can find a way to do that, people are people, and people can learn to respect each other, learn to trust each other. You just have to give them the chance to do that.
Thank you both. I mean, I think one of the things that inspires us every day is that our students do come together, and they come together and they learn about the environment, whether that's the socioeconomic side or the political side or the scientific side, but they also learn to live with each other. We encourage that through our peace building and leadership seminar, but there's also really fundamentally one laundry and one dining hall and one pub, and you're sort of at the middle of nowhere and you make a right turn. So they don't have a lot of choice. They get to know each other. And then they know each other, as David said, as people and deeply. And the intensity of that experience makes such a huge difference, both for us and for their lives and for all of our futures. So I want to thank you both, and I want to ask you to share your questions for our speakers. There's one in the corner. You're next.
Thanks to both of you. The major thing we've been able to do in 20 years, and you gave some hints about where you might go in the next 20, but just wondered if you could expand on that. What you see the vision for the next 20 years.
That's all on Tareq now.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, it's a good question. As I said, we want to have all of our research centers under the umbrella of climate change, connect everything we do to climate change adaptation and mitigation, on renewable energy, on sustainable agriculture, on transport and water management, on ecology. And we want to grow. Currently, we have a capacity of 62 students. We have only 62 beds, and we want to grow up to 150. This is also another goal that we want to achieve. We want also to establish more cooperation beyond the trilateral research that we do with Palestinians and Jordanians, to open more into the Gulf countries and North Africa, to develop more partnerships, more joint degrees with different universities. And one of the goals that we have is to actually build a sister campus of the Arava Institute, either in Israel or in Jordan.
West Bank.
West Bank.
Thank you.
I'd like to tap into something that you had said, Tareq, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I have been going to Israel since the early 70s. I have many Israeli friends, and over the past 5 years or so, I've learned about the Arava Institute and asked them about it, and it's not known. These are highly professional people that live all over the country, and they're not familiar with the Institute. So if you could expand on how are you going to bring the Institute to regular Israelis, because the work you all do is incredible on so many levels, and I'd love it to be more known.
Yeah, this is true. Actually, people in Palestine and in Jordan and even in the US know us more than the Israelis. And this is actually why we decided to establish our communication department and to hire a PR company. We did a lot of surveys in Israel, and we saw that the people know us more in Israel. We started also to do more events within Israel. We established the public council in Israel to increase the awareness about the work that we do, and we reached I think a level where Palestinian government and Israeli government come to us to consult on transponder environmental issues in the region, and I hope one day we'll be famous like MIT or Technion on the transponder environmental issues.
I will say that when we did got the water systems into Gaza, we were going to do a press release, and the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, scooped us. And they said, well, we're taking all the credit for getting those in there because they allowed them in there. All right, okay. There's a question in the back, Neil.
So I want to broaden the question that you are in Scotland, when you're able to get the story of the Arava Institute presented in any way to the people who were gathered to climate change free. If you want to tell us about it, tell us how we can help.
So I've been asked to repeat the question. Neil wants to know how Glasgow was a venue for getting the word out about the Arava Institute and how we can work together to broaden that message. Good summary? Counselor?
Okay, actually, we managed. This is, as I said, it's a huge event. We have hundreds of parallel sessions going on. It's very hard to decide to which session that you want to go, but we managed actually to deliver our message on the transboundary work that we do on renewable energy, on water. I managed to do very good connections with my colleagues in Morocco, United Arab Emirates, in Turkey, and in Jordan, and invited them to visit the Arava Institute. And next year, hopefully, we will ourselves arrange more side events and run sessions in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in the COP 27. As I said, it's really huge organization. We managed to deliver our voice also to the Israeli decision makers. We managed to meet two ministers, Israeli ministers in Glasgow, and one of the Jordanian ministers there.
Also, our head of our water project is there now, so we're yet to hear how, and he delivered a keynote today. So we are yet to hear all the pieces of the puzzle.
I want to just add in terms of, public awareness, excuse me, it is a big concern of ours, and we do try and invest a lot of energy and resources into getting the word out, especially in Israel, to Israelis, because we've heard this, of course, before. But we do face, two big challenges. One is that we're a good story, and media is really not that interested in nice stories. They're really much more interested. If our students were beating each other up and killing each other, I'm sure we'd get a lot more press coverage. The second problem is that we're geographically challenged. We're located on a kibbutz that's in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And so it's very, very difficult for people to even know that where we are and to get people to come down. I have to say that to our friends at Jewish National Fund, you do a phenomenal job of bringing people down, as well as the bike ride, which is, of course, how a lot of people who never would have gotten to the Arava Institute come. But what's interesting is that in the past 2 years, because of the pandemic and because everybody now has, moved from physical meetings to Zoom meetings, all of a sudden the Arava Institute is much more sought after, is much more, we're asked to be part of many more meetings, and at the very least, I can say that the government, especially this new government, is much more aware of the Arava Institute, has reached out on a number of occasions from different ministries and asked for our advice, asked for our help, and asked for our participation. So I think that we're going in the right direction.
Please, that's you.
Hi, I'm Isaac Minkoff, graduate at Brandeis University, pursuing Master of Arts in Policy. I learned about this event from my work at the Schusterman Center for Israel Studies at Brandeis, so I'm very excited to be here. You mentioned the new government, and the question I had with this budget finally being passed. This is great. Does the Arava Institute get to see any of that benefit? And if not, in the advice that they call you for, you also get to ask for additional funding and resources from.
So once again, I'm going to summarize the question. With the new Israeli government, is there budgetary outcomes for the Institute or the possibility of that? And as the government engages you, do you get to engage them? And we can also talk about opportunities with the US government, as long as we're at it.
I hope that we will get especially after this COP 2026 with the new Israeli government, the new Israeli goals, zero emissions by 2050. I hope that they will have or build a plan to meet these goals, and that means there will be a lot of funding for R&D in the field of environment. Not only that, also the Minister of Energy and the Minister of Environmental Protection, they recognize the importance of transboundary work on the environment. And I hope that we will get some money from for research.
I have to tell you one story. A couple of months ago, it was before it was with the previous government, actually. We had a visit from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they were telling us with some of the officials from the ministry, and they were telling us about this dispute that Israel was having with Jordan. Some of you may have heard of it. On the Arava border, there was an area that was in dispute, and Jordan was demanding it back from Israel. And the people from the ministry said that as part of the negotiation, they had proposed to the Jordanians that the Israeli government would supply scholarships for Jordanians to come study at the Arava Institute. That was one of their cards that they put on the table that they didn't tell us about.
They told you after. But I will take one more question. Or we won't. Oh, right here.
I just have one quick question. First of all, thank you so much for being here, and I'm the associate director of the center. So also praise David for his wonderful work. I just wanted to ask, I'm really interested in how you think this program that you have in common that will connect Jewish Israelis and Arab Israelis through these same issues. What do you think that model is like?
So the question, I'm supposed to repeat the question. Yeah. So what do we think the model of bringing Israeli Arabs, how will that engagement with Israelis, how will that look, both, I guess, academically and programmatically?
I think it will be similar to the model that we have today, where for our students at the Arava Institute, we have like free space. Free space means that you can talk about anything, discuss anything. In different universities around the world, free space or free campus means that you cannot talk about politics. When it comes to environment also involves politics. When you talk about the natural resources that we share, water, energy, water rights, and our students discuss that. And there's always a lot of tension. That's why we have the peace building seminar. It's a seminar compulsory for all the students, where they discuss everything. They discuss the independence day, they discuss the Nakba, they discuss the settlements, they discuss the war, they go visit Yad Vashem, they go for villages and Arab villages within Israel. It's not an easy program. They shout, they cry, but as David said, they go at the end of the same classroom, the same dining room, and the same dorm. And we will do the same thing within Israel, with the Arab research institutions. We will not hide our agenda, which is the environment and the recognition of that we have a conflict, that we have an elephant in the room, and we want to talk about that elephant to come and meet middle point. This model is working. This model is functioning very well at the Arava Institute, and that's the way we build the trust. We understand each other.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing how that develops, because I can't imagine it won't be successful and very powerful. It's a model that works.
Yeah, during the semester, the students hate it. Really, yeah. I came here for science. I don't want to talk politics. I don't know what you have to do that. And at the end of the semester, when we ask them what was the highlight, and they say peace building seminar. Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, David, Tareq,
Pleasure.
Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and we're here.